Get to juggle 3 microphones today. So my topic is how to use a microphone like a professional. And there's just a few basic concepts I'm going to talk about. Combine that with some practice on your part and just being aware of a few things. And you can just really improve how you deliver your message to people and make it clear. So there's 2 main things I want you to take away from this presentation. One is the relationship between the sound energy or the sound pressure coming out of your mouth and distance. And the second one is what we call plosives and what those do and how you can deal with that. So those are 2 big things. So have you ever seen somebody do a presentation, they're dressed impeccably, they're very professional, and they come up and they might do something like this. And nobody's more aware of this than a sound person like me or dealing with, running soundboards. But anyway, so they'll come up and they'll say, "Thank you so much. It's really great to talk to you today, and I'm going to present this great pie chart we have today. Look at those awesome numbers that we have, and I think this is just going to be fantastic." Or they might start talking like, I'm so excited to be here, and it's just great. And if you're in the back and you can't hear, what do you think? Is that kind of annoying? Yeah, you don't want to work to hear somebody. Or have you ever seen those award shows, especially the music ones, where they've got those skinny podium mics, and the person kneels down and goes, "Thank you very much, this is just fantastic." And the guys in the truck are going, no, stop doing that. So there's just a few basic things you can do to really, really help yourself. So first is distance. Think of the sound energy coming out of your mouth as like the ripples in a pond when you chuck a rock in a pond. They go outward, right? They lose energy not linearly, but exponentially. So if I take a certain distance that I'm talking, let's say it's 4 inches from my mouth or 3 inches, if I double that, the sound energy hitting that is actually 1/4 as much. If I triple it, it's 1/9 the amount. So simply going from like 2 inches to 6 or 3 to 9 or 4 to 12, that drops the energy hitting that microphone by 9 times. Did you know that? No. Okay. So distance, what does that tell you about the distance you hold the microphone? It's really important. The other thing that's really important is for you to talk at the same volume all the time, because if you change your volume a whole lot without moving the microphone, you know what's going to happen. If you also drift off in your volume while doing this, guess what's going to happen? Everybody's going to go, "I can't hear you." So you need to kind of get used to doing that. How far away should you hold the microphone? It's going to depend upon the particular microphone, but in general, we're going to talk about handheld mics here. I like to use the make a fist rule. So 3 to 4 inches is typically pretty good. So if you think about making a fist and then putting the microphone about that distance away, that gives you a pretty good ballpark figure. Does that make sense? So number 1 rule, keep your distance. Number 2 rule, make a fist. That should give you a pretty good spot. The second thing we're going to talk about is plosives. A plosive is those P's, pus, ch, k, those kind of things where you move air. We're all going to do a little exercise here. I want you to all take your hand and put it maybe 3 inches in front of your mouth. Man, I wish I had a camera. It's like, this is so boring. Yeah. So put that in front of your mouth, and I want you to go, p. Do it, kind of feel that air moving? How far away do you have to take your hand before you don't really feel it? Move your hand a little bit away. Do you feel it? No. So there's a zone where that air is moving in and around your mouth. Have you ever seen like pictures of, and I just did that, didn't I? Have you ever seen pictures of people doing recording studios? They got the big pop filter in front of the microphone. The big round thing looks like got pantyhose on it. So why is that there? It's to block that air. Microphones are almost like magic, but they're not. But they're just about like magic. They take and amplify sound waves to very small electrical signals and then, let you take that into an amplification system of some sort and record it. It's really almost magic, but not quite. They can't do magic. They can't work miracles, so you've got to help. Those plosives overload that sensor, that element in there that captures that sound. There's a physical element in there, so plosives are bad. So I'm going to bring up my wonderful subject here who's going to help me, Wendy. So Wendy's going to come up. I want to give a shout out to my lovely and talented wife, Donna, who's running the soundboard, is going to change the microphone levels for me. Bring me right over here.
Not sure what I've got myself
Stand right
into.
next to me. So we're just going to demonstrate, among the things you can do to help with those plosives is the pop filter, but you're not going to carry around a pop filter with you. That's why I have this windscreen on this microphone. This foam filter really helps make a difference. So if you want to bring up number 3 here, test, test, test. So I'm going to hand you this. Put it about appropriate distance from your mouth. There you go. And we are going to do Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Now?
Yep, have at it. Say it loud enough.
Peter Pepper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How'd I do?
A little bit louder, a little bit louder.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Okay.
Did I say that right?
This microphone does not have one on there, but try the same thing with this one. There you go.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
So there's a big difference between what happens on this one with the
there?
filter and what happens on that one.
I couldn't hear it.
So you can have a microphone too close to your mouth too. 2 things happen. More plosives because you got that air moving. And the second thing is you can hear every little thing happening in your mouth. It's just kind of distracting. If you bring it back a little bit, not so bad, right? Can you hear the difference? So if you're used to, like Karen's used to singing in church, right? So what do? You eat the microphone. That's what you're supposed to do, eat the microphone. Really overloaded that, didn't it? So you don't want to eat the microphone either. It's great for church or if you're in a rock and roll concert, but it's not so good for a situation like presenting. Let's see here, what else? So microphones also have pickup patterns, and there's 2 main pickup patterns with them. One is omnidirectional, where the microphone pretty much picks up sound in all directions, maybe not the rear quite so much, but pretty much from all around. Most of these handheld microphones you're going to use are what we call cardioid, so they're directional, where there's kind of a cone that kind of comes out this way. And if we're talking and we point this directional microphone over here, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? If we're doing an omnidirectional, that wouldn't have changed so much. So how are you doing today, Wendy?
I am doing marvelously. Am I supposed to move this somehow?
Talk a little louder. You need to deliver a little more volume.
I'm doing marvelous.
So what happens if you point it to me and still talk?
I'm doing marvelous. How is it doing?
Can you hear the difference?
Can you
Bring
hear
it
the
back.
difference? Can you hear the difference? I'm still marvelous. A little nervous, but I'm marvelous.
You're doing great. You're doing great. So another thing you can do distance-wise, if you've got something like this with a foam protector on it, you can hold it a little closer and and help yourself out. A lot of times, have you seen me if you're doing video and I go like this? How many of you have seen me do that? A few people. It's easy to drift that microphone down while you're talking, but it's also easy to change your volume. If you're not getting enough volume out of the microphone and everything else is good, sometimes the sound system, you don't want it to feed back, so they don't want to crank it up too much. So you got to talk louder. So deliver a little bit of volume. You could probably use a little more volume, and that would help things, because she's a little nervous. But when you get used to presenting, if you do a little more volume, you don't have to shout, but just bring it a little bit, and that your sound people will love you. It's just great. It's awesome, because it makes their job so much easier. The other thing you can do, if you've got a microphone like this and you hear yourself, you hear that, you can take that directional microphone and bring it out of that zone of air and just talk like this. So, see the difference? Try it. I'll switch it.
Which one? Am I
So do some puffs, yeah. See the difference? So if you bring it out to the side a little bit, keeping that distance the same, but bring it out to the side a little bit, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? These are some expert tips here. You're going to be ready to do this like a pro. So it kind of depends what somebody hands you. So what other type of microphones would I maybe deal with? One is a podium mic, those small little tiny mics on the stalks that come out to the podium. Typically those work best at a little more distance. That small diaphragm in there for sound sensing doesn't work well up close like these do or as well. So those work best at maybe a foot or so. So if you got a podium mic, as long as your distance is decent, you don't have to go way up to it. And that's what the award shows are all about. That drives the people in the sound truck nuts because they're not designed for that. They're designed for a little bit of distance. So one last thing. Wendy, why do you think when I do video, my first choice for a microphone is a headset? What would your guess be?
Because it's easier. You don't have to worry about where it is.
That's probably the number one thing. It's easier for the user. They don't have to worry about where their microphone is. Does the distance change from their mouth?
Nope.
No. So let's bring down both of these mics and bring up number one. Number one. So this is the headset. So as I move around, especially if I'm turning around to talk to the screen, I don't have this happening. I've got a consistent distance. I don't have to worry about what I'm doing with my hands and have a microphone in my hand and go to do something and forget what I'm doing with it. It's also closer to your mouth, so there's less chance of feedback if I'm in an amplified situation. There's a lot of great reasons to use one of those. So that's why that's my first choice if you're wondering, why does he always make me wear a headset? Plus, I think it's a little less obtrusive on video than this. Personal opinion. And once you wear it, it's not too bad. You kind of forget about it as you go along. So let's take some questions, and I'll repeat them. Go ahead, Karen.
If you wanted to control your environment when you're speaking and you wanted to buy something, what would be like the cost? Will other sound people use your equipment, or do they prefer their own?
It kind of depends. If you do a lot of speaking, you could buy a wireless pack with you, and then they have different connectors from the microphone to the pack. So there's a few pretty standard ones, but I can get more info. But yeah, if you do a lot, you could find a headset that's comfortable. This is one from a company called Rode, R0DE, and it's pretty comfortable, and it's not real obtrusive. But actually, this one lets you change connectors for different belt packs and stuff. But some people do carry their own, yeah. Back in the back.
Where's the best place to put a lapel mic?
Oh, lapel mic, great question. Lapel mics generally don't want to be too close to here. They generally work best about that depression in your chest. So in terms of, you want to put them typically on a lapel or someplace like this, but think about right below, where your breast muscles are. Your sternum, yeah, thank you. They're about right in there, and that depression is a good general area. They're not meant to be used super close. They work really well in a lot of situations. They don't work too well for amplified situations because they tend to feed back a little more. That's the real drawback of them. But for interviews and for general purposes, they work pretty good, if you get a good one. So, any more questions?
Does your advice change at all for people who do podcasting?
A lot of the same principles apply because you still want to be consistent in your volume. You want to be consistent in your distance of the microphone. With podcasting, really with anything, presentation helps. So varying your voice pitch, inflection, those kind of things, pop filters, the mechanical kind of stuff makes a difference. But you'll find with those when you're podcasting, what kind of microphone are we talking about? One of those bigger ones like in a radio station? Just whatever? Yeah. Distance makes a big difference. You don't want to be constantly changing your distance. So have you ever heard people on the radio? They're like right up on the microphone, but if they ever like back off to go grab a sheet of paper and keep talking, it sounds like they're in a cave. Makes a big difference. So, those same principles really would apply. So thank you, Wendy. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So if you're thinking about doing some kind of presentation and you're planning one or you want to know a little bit more, give me a call. I got business cards, the Visual Impact Studios and Company, and I'll be gladly meet with you and give you more pointers or help you plan something out and help you fine-tune things a little bit if you want to do that. But if you're thinking about a presentation, you want it recorded for posterity or you're in a speaker's guild or organization of some kind and you need something recorded, I do that a lot. So thank you so much.